Okay, guys, welcome back to 2017. Now, as promised, we'll be doing the Actors Talk About Themselves, which have been very popular. A lot of people think, we want you to talk to other people involved, because one of the, I think it's quite humorous, is that actors, we always get called the talent, and there's like hundreds and thousands of very talented people out there who work in this industry who are not actors. And of course, it's very appropriate that my very good friend Leith McPherson is our first guest, and I think I'm going to call it an actor talks to crew, or just an actor talks. And Leith is a dialect coach. And Leith, a lot of people have been asking, talk to a dialect coach. We want to find out what a dialect coach does. So, in the interest of good interviewing, that's going to be my first question. What is a dialect coach? And welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a pleasure. Always a pleasure to work with you, Stephen. Bit of fun in the pipeline, one feels. What is a dialect coach? A dialect coach, it depends a little bit on the medium, whether you're helping someone for a radio commercial or a voiceover, or helping them for a theatre performance, or helping them for screen. But essentially, basically what connects all of those things is that you are helping an actor to find the voice of a character. And that's done in collaboration with the actor, the director, indications from the text that you're working from. So you are helping them to shift their own voice to something that feels like they can embody the character and add the voice to that in an integrated way. So often it means shifting to a different accent or dialect, depending on which country you're in. You can use those terms differently, but it really is, sometimes it's about changing different vocal qualities to shift you within an accent to something that feels like it's your voice speaking as the character, or the character's voice speaking through you, and those things become interchangeable and connected. So that's the journey that you're helping an actor with, really.
Yeah. And of course, where we met, as people have probably already realised, was on the Hobbit.
In Zebro.
And I guess when it comes to embodying characters, you had so many different kinds of races, and all sorts of creatures. I mean, how was that like going from normal work? I guess you'd have to call everything else normal work into all these different races of creatures. What was that like?
Oh, it was unrepeatable, extraordinary, just the most amazing experience, and to help in a small way to help create another world with people on a daily basis for several years, as it turned out to be for me, was extraordinary. And to work with the text of someone who was as passionate about language as I was. So Professor Tolkien was so passionate about languages. It was his main area of study. And so the thing that I loved, you might be sitting on a text, sitting on a set somewhere working on a text, and it's sort of, it's kind of hour 13 or something, and you're thinking, what am I doing here? Am I helping? What am I, what is the part that I'm playing in this behemoth of a project that we were all working on? And the thing that I wrote in one of my scripts was that Professor Tolkien had said that he created the languages first, and then he created the world to put them in. So that made me feel like I was, I had a mission statement. That was something that I was there to do, was to try and help capture that little bit. So that was part of the journey. But it was the most incredible thing, as you know. It was a singular experience, I think, for everybody involved. So yeah, to walk from one set where you're working with a set of dwarves like yourself, and then to move to a second unit might be filming with a bunch of orcs, and then you go to ADR and you're working with elves, and then and you go back and you're working with a wizard in the afternoon. That's not a typical day in the industry, but a typical day in NZ. Yeah. So as choice is.
Yeah. And you brought up a really interesting point about finding how we found the language in the characters, because obviously you talk to any dialect or accent coach anywhere in the world, if you're trying to create or learn a script, and I do that now, I learn the accent. I start straight away with the accent, because that just gives me so much of the character, and there's so much character to find in that. Yeah. I mean, I've worked with you on Brooklyn stuff and Irish and all sorts of things, and there's so much juice in that when it comes to. And so, how important is it just to find the accent straight away in a character?
I think it's incredibly important, and there are certain when you're doing any kind of accent work, there are certain generalizations that you'll make about a particular culture. But it's something I was working on with a group of actors the other day, that, for example, for a British actor, again, generalizations, disclaimer, but on the whole, British actors and British people will be a bit more hesitant about their self-expression in a social situation, particularly if they're talking to strangers. And I was trying to help people understand that, as a generalization, American speakers are much more committed to what they say. So for you to feel, if you're someone who comes from a culture that is a bit hesitant to speak, or will throw in, I'm so sorry. I was just wondering if I've just got this sort of thing that I'd like to. Never mind. I'm bothering you, obviously. You come from a culture which is really used to taking a step back before they take a step forward, into a character that is living in a culture where that inhibition is not part of their psyche. Generalization. That's a huge step to make, and that you can only find when you embody that voice in a way that matches the cultural dominant energy. So there will always be something hiding from you that you can't find on the page with your eyes to the page, that you can only find when you breathe life and get the heart of that character pumping, and then find the way that those words come through you into the world around them. So I think it's hugely important, but I would say that, wouldn't I? I would say that.
And it's interesting you say like the English and the American, because I think like you go a few generations down and you look at the difference. Me living in Sydney now and coming from New Zealand, and it's quite similar. I mean, like New Zealand's like, the Kiwi, it's, you wouldn't probably look at you and right, just play everything down, and Australians are like, nah, mate, this is the way it's, again, big generalisation, but
more true than not true. That's the thing. That's more true than not.
And I guess in our industry, we're not really telling the whole truth in reality as it is in real life. We're telling a version of it to be entertained and to tell a story. So I guess it has to be sharpened in some way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a huge consideration, and it's your intended audience is always going to affect the choices that you make. As a dialect coach in collaboration with a director or actors. The number of times that I've been asked by a director to get an actor to do a neutral accent, which is a mind-blowing sort of term that is used startlingly often, essentially means something that is intelligible to everybody and not necessarily won't conjure associations for an audience that the character isn't intended to have. But on something like The Hobbit, where you're creating, say, a Scottish accent, but a Scottish accent that is intelligible to everyone in the world that you want to see the movie, of course you're going to make compromises to facilitate telling the story as clearly as you can to the broadest possible audience. So yeah, there's always that kind of authenticity versus intelligibility for the audience conversation to be had and compromises to be made, which means that there will always be other choices that you could have made with a character, and that can be freeing, but also open you up to people who go, oh, but that's not really the way that my grandma would say that. And you go, no, I know, but we're not doing your family, and we're not speaking for you. We are speaking for a broader audience. So, pause and chalice, darling. The pause and chalice. Don't get me started.
See, the words neutral and the words generic as an actor, for me, it just turns me inside out, because I was Meisner trained, which isn't the method, by the way, people, but it's kind of sort of. But we're always taught to be specific.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. It's always taught to be specific. Just be specific, and be specific about who you are and what you want and what your point of view is. And when you throw in those neutral, it's like, but what is it? Because everyone laughs about, what's my motivation, but that's exactly what it's about. You need to know exactly what you're doing at any point of time. So that would drive me bananas as well.
Oh, I think it's really tough, and it's. There was I got a call from an actor the other day who was saying they've asked for a British regional accent. And that, which is just, so you have to figure out what that part of the process. Don't forget, you're not actually doing the role, you're auditioning. So what are you trying to enable the actor to show the casting director at that point? Is it I can sound not Australian, or I can sound not American, I can sound British, I can shift? Or are you actually trying to give them an embodiment of the character where they go, oh, I hadn't thought of that before, that's a different kind of energy, maybe we can include that in the mix? So it's a slightly fraught process, but I think simplicity is always the key. A couple of key changes can make a huge difference to an actor's energy. And if that unlocks something in their performance, then I think you're on the right track, especially for an audition, but generally speaking as well.
Yeah, because I usually like to pick out little parts of accents, or even run it differently, because whenever I drop into like a New York or anything close to that, my energy just goes. It just goes
great,
in a completely different direction.
I know. I find it so liberating. I find it so, to have that direct communication. We were talking before about British versus American, and that kind of that simplicity of communication and direct communication is something that I think is such a huge it's such a toy to play with as an actor, to be able to shift your internal energy and also to find a confidence that you might not find as yourself, that you can find through someone else's voice. That's a pretty fun thing to do, isn't it? Don't you love it when you have that?
It's all fun. I mean, like, this is way more fun than actors waffling on to themselves. This is brilliant. Now, obviously, like, you are extremely passionate about this. I have sessions with you, and it's like bang, 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 and it's very productive. I mean, what was it that had you do this job? I mean, how did you get into it? Where did you start?
Well, how long have you got, love? Going all the way back, 17,000 years ago, I trained as an actor straight out of high school. So I was 17, which was ridiculous, but it was what I thought I was passionate about at the time. And by my second year of that training course, I knew I didn't want to be an actor. It just, it wasn't really compatible with good mental health for me. It didn't make me happy. It wasn't what I was passionate about.
Just ask our partners who live. Yes. It's
tough. It's a really, really tough profession.
It can be, yeah.
And I think for it to not also be satisfying, for it to be tough and not satisfying, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, there must be something else here that I can actually put my heart and soul into. And I had trained as a singer as well. So where those two things in connected, theatre and music, was voice. So I
thought you were going to say dance.
Was contemporary dance, as you can see. So that's, I hit on that as a concept, and then moved to London to train there at Central, which is a drama school in London, and had the best year of my life so far. You never know. There could be another one coming that was as amazing as that. But it was one of those moments where lightning finds its place to earth, where I just thought, this is it. This is combining the scientific, analytical side, the text side, the musical side, the theatrical side, and also there have been a number of opportunities in my career to be on your side of the camera. And I'm so much happier on mine. I get so much more satisfaction from helping you than from doing it myself. So that's all of those things make you go, yeah, I think I'm on the right path here. I think I'm doing the right thing.
And you can tell when you work with someone. That's why I love working with you, because you're so into it. And it's like going to a restaurant or a cafe or someone, and you know the food someone really enjoys. I mean, I walk into a place and I see people hating what they're doing, and I'll walk straight out because I know it's going to be rubbish. It's all about the love of it, and it certainly comes through. And speaking of love, I mean, you've got a lot of babies when it comes to your accents or your little accents.
You're going to make me choose, aren't you? You horrible, horrible man. Well, I knew this would come up.
Well, no, I won't make you choose the best one, but what's one that you always love going back to?
Scott's is the easiest for me. It's low-hanging fruit for me. It's right there. It's totally ready to go. I love Scotland. I mean, with a name like Leith McPherson, there's a little something in my blood. I have an involuntary physical response to men in kilts. I mean, it's there. But I also have some absolutely wonderful Scottish friends, and some of the greatest people I know, and some of the greatest people you know are Scot. And so that accent is so ready to go in me. I love that with a passion. But I always love the accent I've just been helping someone with. So I had an actor here this morning who was doing RP. So we were working like this for the entire time, and it's fantastic. You reignite that passion. So it's like, so it's wonderful to. I'm going to let that go. It's wonderful to be able to put myself in a concentrated way into something, and then it becomes my new little. You kind of suck on that bone until you've got all the meat of it, and it's thrilling. I love it.
I love
and
it.
then you can move on to something else. The next person comes through the door and you're doing, Kentucky, and you go, oh, isn't this fantastic? and the next course comes around, the lazy Susan spins, and you go, oh, dumplings, yeah. So it's great. It's great.
Thank you for those. And of course, I wasn't going to put you on the spot and like make you do accents, because it's like when I was a kid and my mum used to make me sing in front of her friends and stuff like that, and I only had one song, and
what was it?
The Gambler from Kenny Rogers. I did it when I was about 10 or 12 at a show.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sophisticated at 10.
Yeah,
I think.
pretty. Yeah. So,
okay.
And that was like, they sing the song. I don't want to, But anyway, I did sometimes.
Yeah, dinner parties are fraught when people start saying, "Oh, and do this. Oh, and do that accent. And oh, can you do my accent? Where am I from?" I think, I just need more wine.
Yeah. Well, it must have been, just bearing in mind what you've just said about the Scottish accent, it must have been awesome to go in there with so many Scottish accents on The Hobbit. I mean, I auditioned in Scottish. I auditioned there. And then I trained, because we all auditioned for Gloin, like, all the Kiwi guys, all for Gloin. And Gloin was a too dour character for me, apparently, because mine was a bit too bubbly. And my
too
audition,
bubbly?
well,
Stephen Hunter? Too bubbly?
And then I get there for my first, I think, wardrobe call, and Philip is like, how's your Irish? And I'm
fantastic.
Like, that's okay. And he goes, because Jimmy does a very good Northern Irish. And because Jimmy's, and it was perfect, and then and of course we all know the story of that. We spent countless sessions on my Northern Irish accent, and it wasn't until lunchtime on the very last day of pickups that I got my script.
Do I remember? I was waiting. Was it 2.5 years before we did that? Was it something like 2.5 years? And then, am I right? It was something like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this is, if anyone is ready to go and do this right now, it is Stephen Hunter. You were, every single day of that shoot, you were ready to go. It was in you.
I was like that kid I was like that kid in the sports game who was sitting on the bench for like just waiting for my chance. And I got out there, and it was the very last thing I shot, the very, very last thing I shot on the movie. It was very emotional.
It was. I thought it was great, and I think the fortunate thing was, because of the way that the production, I don't know what people know and people don't know, so I tread very carefully around stuff.
No, that's fine.
We had an extra little bit of preparation time right at the beginning of shooting.
Yeah.
And the work that we did then set you up for the entire thing. That was incredibly valuable, to be able to have that rehearsal time with all of the actors and help them flesh out those accents a bit more. And it was tricky with the Scottish, because you've essentially got at least 5 or 6 different Scottish accents in the movie, because everyone was from a slightly different place. And in terms of the dwarves themselves, they were intended to be this diaspora. They had been spread out across Middle Earth, really, removed from a unified group.
What's that word again? That's going to be my word of the week. A diaspora. How do you spell it?
Diaspora. Diaspora. And it essentially means the population of an area that is scattered away from their place of origin.
So
you can talk about the Jewish diaspora or the Irish diaspora, everyone who has left Ireland but has their roots in Ireland.
Diaspora. I'm going to use that in conversation just to sound smart.
Yay! We can do that too.
Yeah.
That sounds smart.
Wow. Because Ken had a really unique Scottish accent, and Graham obviously is brilliant with accents. And if Graham got into full Scot, you couldn't understand what he was saying. I mean, I guess you'd almost have to pull him back and bring the others up a little bit.
That's the thing, and it was always, and also we were there for so long, we were filming for so long that one of the keys was consistency and trying to map even the people who weren't I didn't need to work with for Dialect, who were essentially doing their own dialect after a year and a half in New Zealand, might need a little freshening up from time to time with their own accent. So it was, every day was different, and that was one of the greatest things about it. And my day didn't start with putting on. How much did your costume weigh? Like 30 kilos?
Maybe
something?
Around. It was a lot heavier when it was wet. It was I had 5 pieces. 5 pieces. Yeah. But
amazing.
Yeah. You know.
So I was always a lot more comfortable than you guys, and I was keenly aware of that as I was stepping in to adjust a vowel or a consonant here or there, thinking, let's just recognise the other things that everyone's having to deal with at this moment.
How cool was it as a dialect coach going in and getting the opportunity to use Dwarvish, Black Speech, and Elvish, which are like 3, Everyone loves Elvish, don't they? Everyone loves the elves. They all love the Elvish. It's pretty nice.
And I think Tolkien loved that as well. I wonder whether he, Dwarvish was a secret language, which we kind of blew out of the water. First day of shooting?
Pretty much.
In Bag End.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether Tolkien also felt that Elvish was his greatest passion, and that's why he sort of said, you know what, Dwarvish is, it's secret. It's secret. Don't make me have to work on that. So David Sarlo, who was our language consultant, our Tolkien scholar, was creating all kinds of material for you guys, which no one had ever said before and no one had ever read before. And to be in that Genesis sort of process was amazing. And to know that you were giving a line of dialogue to someone that had never been said before in a language that had never been heard before, that was incredible. It was, and then to, new setup, and you've got a completely different language with a completely new set of actors, that was amazing. It was wonderful.
Because Elvish is like, it almost feels like it's got a lot of Welsh qualities to it.
Absolutely, it does. It's got Welsh and Old Finnish, then from Finland, kind of qualities to it as well. I haven't studied either of those languages, so I can't give you a for instance.
I've got family in Finland, so I haven't heard any.
Do you
Elvish.
really?
Yes.
You should bust out some Elvish with them and see if they nod.
I do know that a lot of the Nordic symbols are very similar to that's where the dwarf symbols are from, like very Icelandic and Nordic. Yeah, the runes.
Absolutely. I know. I occasionally look back at production photos and try and translate even little things. You know what it was like. The art department was so amazing that you could go around a corner into a room that you were absolutely sure would never be on camera, and there was something in there, some little detail in there that perhaps only you ever saw. That was just incredible. So. Yeah, it was great. It was amazing.
Now you love the Scottish. Obviously, there's a lot in the Hobbit we did. Is there any weirdest experience you've had with a language? And of course, I'll use a disclaimer here that anyone that we've worked with, you're completely fine to name names. So
weirdest experience? Do you mean in terms of the Hobbit languages?
Well,
or
no,
do you mean
just like a dialect job, like
Okay, here's one that I keep, that I just, if I'm feeling a bit intimidated by anything ever, which happens a lot. I remember this guy Australian actor who rang me up on a Friday saying, I've got an audition Monday afternoon. Can you help me? I look Indian, but I don't have an Indian accent. So could we do a session together first thing Monday morning, and then I've got this audition in the afternoon? And of course I said, yes, of course. And then put the phone down and thought, oh my God, I've never done Indian before. And the way that I run my sessions, as you know, I run the session in the accent. So I learn the accent myself, and then I'm modeling it and ad-libbing in it for the whole session. So here was I sitting on Monday morning, having had swine flu for the entire weekend. That was a sort of sidebar where my brain was just going, please don't make me multitask right now. I just want to just die a little. And thinking this is an accent which is sent up so badly all the time. So the cultural sensitivity of it was just, thumping in my head as I launched into the accent and started with this guy on Monday morning. And I felt so self-conscious and so I wasn't tentative with it. I couldn't be. You can't be. You've got to go for it with an accent. You've just got to dive in and swim around and figure out where you're making mistakes and where you're not. But I started in, and he had this look on his face of, I couldn't tell what it was. I couldn't read it. And when we stopped, and he said, "You sound exactly like my mother." That's amazing. And this feeling of, oh my God, I did it. That I didn't offend him. I was being respectful to an accent, which you always want to do that. You always want to work on an accent without judgment. And so much judgment comes into accent work, of people saying, I sound terrible, or this accent is terrible, or people sound stupid, people sound smart when they have this particular accent. But always going in an objective way and just, doing the work, working it methodically. That was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool challenge that I don't really wish to repeat.
And just finally, with the last one, I talked to the actors about advice they've got for people, going into the industry. I mean, what things would you say to people if they're looking to get into theatre or to film? Like voice tips or finding their voice. What things would you offer them to start with?
I think it's really good to work, if you're looking to develop your voice, and you'll only know what your voice is capable of if you work it. If you actually, it's like building it. Well, it is literally building the muscle groups, but also increasing your flexibility as a human being, as an actor, and increasing your curiosity. So modeling different voices that you hear, constantly listening with an ear that is tuned not just to content but also to delivery. Oh, that person says castle, for example, instead of castle. And just starting to open up a file in your brain that starts to log those kinds of things, but also developing your voice, I would say on a daily basis, or at least 3 or 4 times a week, till you reach a performance level of voice. People can, actors in particular, can feel that they will wait for the audition or wait for the job and then work their voice or then find the accent. But if you are working your craft all the time, then you have more of your palette to show when those different jobs come in. As you know, it's that you don't know what tomorrow will bring, but if your voice is ready to go for that challenge, if you actually work out your voice and are speaking in your professional voice, whatever that might be, frequently, then it's within reach for you. It doesn't feel like something which is, that there's a large length to breach between you and where you want to be, and you and what you want to make available to a director or a casting agent or your fellow actor.
Yeah.
So work the craft, work your body, work your voice, play with it, and play with others that you hear. That would be my advice.
Awesome. And I guess, even on a personal level, because, I truly believe everyone has a voice. And, if you've been around small children, they're not restricted, that they're not censored when it comes to using their voice. And, things happen in our lives that shut people down. And, I think doing it, even if you're not planning to be an actor, it's just like a marvellous thing to find your expression.
I absolutely agree. Some of the most satisfying work that I do is with people who aren't actors, but for some reason or other, like you mentioned, are not their full selves. They're not able to express themselves fully. And so to help someone to express themselves more fully, which is what I do with actors, but to do it with civilians, is incredibly satisfying. It feels like a powerful thing when someone is speaking with their true voice. It's I like it. I like what I do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being my first non-actor guest. I don't think I'm ever going to talk to actors again. This is way too interesting and way too exciting and way more intelligent. Not as many fart jokes, to be fair. But sorry.
I didn't get that email. Was that in the email? Next time.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of end. I'm not really, things that come out of here. That's much more my focus.
But awesome. Thanks for your time, Leith.
Pleasure.
Yeah, sweet.